I'd like to speak to people that traditionally don't vote for Republicans or Donald Trump and articulate to you why you should be furious with the Democratic Party and you should repudiate them, even if that means that you can't vote for Donald Trump, which I think you should for the reasons that I'll outline. I think that you're making an immense mistake at backing the Democratic Party at this point. If you hate Donald Trump and you think that he is a fascist and you think that he's a would-be dictator and that he will be an immense danger to this country, ask yourself this. What if Kamala Harris loses? You didn't have any input. And I could say that with 100% certainty because Kamala Harris got 0 primary votes. The reason for this is quite simple. The Democratic Party, they might not like someone like me who's not a member of their party, but it's not me that they really screwed over. It's you, the average voter of the Democratic Party. I don't think that you're garbage. I don't think that you're a bad person. I think you have disagreements with me. I think you're making a mistake voting for the Democratic Party. But I have many friends that are Democrats who I have personal relationships with that I absolutely love. You're not a terrible person just because you're voting for the party that I disagree with. You have your reasons. I'd happily debate with you, talk with you, try to explain to you why I disagree with those reasons. But at the end of the day, people are going to disagree, and that's totally reasonable and fine. But if you really hate Donald Trump, ask yourself this. Why didn't the Democratic Party give you a voice into picking the person that ultimately would run against Donald Trump?
Kamala Harris, how exactly did she become the Democratic nominee without anyone voting for her?
This is the second time the Democratic Party has circumvented democracy.
Because the person they installed, Kamala Harris, let's be quite honest, we're 5 days before the election. She was the absolute worst person other than Joe Biden to go against Donald Trump. Why? Well, because she doesn't have a charisma or a popular personality on that sort of level of things that would make her popular to independents, that would make her enthusiastic to people that traditionally would vote for Democrats. And we know this because we saw her abysmal performance when it came to 2020.
She put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana.
There just wasn't enthusiasm behind Kamala Harris. There starts out with enthusiasm, but then it quickly diminishes. She doesn't really have the policy chops or like the deep intelligence when it comes to these issues of policy that makes her stand out. There are many other options when it comes to getting people exciting and being charismatic or being policy wonks than Kamala Harris. Even if you look at you want someone who is black or a woman, there are a litany of options from the Democratic Party of people that are impressive black women that would have had a better chance to beat Trump when it comes to them personally than Kamala Harris. But there's another factor with Kamala that makes her uniquely bad. Other than Joe Biden, she is literally the only person that could have been connected to the Biden administration as easily as she is. Why? Because she's the VP. The truth is, running as an incumbent is strong if the public thinks that the country's heading in the right direction. But repeatedly, we could see that huge swaths of this country think that the country's heading in the wrong direction. So literally any choice that wasn't Kamala Harris could have said, hey, we'll be the candidate of change. And this is clearly what the Democratic Party wants because they're trying to run Kamala Harris as it's time for a change. Josh Shapiro, Tim Walz, a litany of other people that aren't in the Biden administration would have made far better candidates. I don't think it's any exaggeration to say if this election was Donald Trump versus Josh Shapiro, who is the governor of Pennsylvania where I live, that Josh is the runaway favorite. And now you may lose to someone that you think's a dictator. I think you're wrong. I don't think Trump's this evil monster, but I know that you feel he is. And I know you're going to be upset if Trump wins. Who knows? Anything could happen. But if he loses, how will you feel that the Democratic Party screwed you over and didn't let you have a voice and installed one of the least likely to win candidates against Donald Trump? They didn't lie to me. They lied to you. And why did they lie to you? Because they were afraid you wouldn't have made a choice that they wanted. They're afraid you would have nominated someone like RFK or someone that's outside the establishment orthodoxy of the Democratic Party. And they couldn't have that. So what did they do? They lied to you for years about Joe Biden's cognitive health.
I think he's better than he's ever been. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
They knew there was a significant problem. They knew that even if he was capable to make it through these first 4 years, he would not be capable to make it through a second 4 years. But they lied to you. And they lied to you right up until the point that the primary was done. Biden's all but guaranteed to win the primary because if you're the incumbent president, you're the de facto winner of the primary, which is exactly what happened. Shortly following the primary, they put Biden on stage for a debate where all of America could see his significant problems. And then they all chose to stab him in the back and sabotage him. Now, there is an argument to be had. Of course, there's a time and a place when a health situation or something else falls upon a president where you must take actions to ensure that he's not your nominee going in the future. For example, God forbid, Joe Biden, who I have no love for, but I don't want to see him harmed. What if he was in a vehicle accident and he couldn't perform the duties of president? At that point, it's completely reasonable to understand, well, we have to have a different nominee. But that's not what happened here. It's not as if all of a sudden some illness struck Joe Biden that no one was aware of. The Democratic Party, including Kamala Harris, were well aware of the issues of Joe Biden.
You were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. You insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
And didn't disclose them, not to me, which is true, they didn't disclose them to me, the Republican voter or the independent voter, but to you, the Democrat voter. They said that it was all cheap fakes and lies, when secretly they knew it wasn't.
There seems to be a sort of rash of videos that have been edited to make the president appear especially frail or mentally confused. I'm wondering if the White House is especially worried about the fact that this appears to be a pattern that we're seeing more often.
Yeah, and I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem.
And they did so to ensure that you didn't have a voice to say, well, now that we know that Biden has these significant problems, let's go in a different direction. They didn't want that. They don't like democracy. They think that the Democratic voters can't be trusted. And so the leaders of the Democratic Party lied to you to ensure that Biden was the de facto candidate. Then they forced Biden out, and then they installed Kamala Harris. And none of you had a say in it. How will you feel after the election if she loses? There are many reasons that I think you should prefer to vote for Donald Trump. The biggest among them is that our government doesn't represent us anymore. The traditional Republican Party didn't represent conservative values. The traditional Democrat Party doesn't represent the values of the people that vote for Democrat. At the top level, when it comes to the most important issues, the establishment Republican and Democratic Party, when it comes to bailing out banks or funding foreign wars, have seemed to agree almost on everything. The Democratic Party will never change until you repudiate them. Just like the Republican Party wouldn't. Trump's not everyone's cup of tea. I get that. But understand, the will of the voters of his party would only start to be heard or even have a chance of being heard once the old guard that felt they were entitled to these positions and viewed their own voters with contempt were ousted. If you're a progressive, if you're a Bernie supporter, if you're an RFK supporter, just know that the Democratic Party doesn't care about you. They don't care. If you're someone that cares about more socialistic policies or cares about Palestine, or if you're someone who lives in an inner city and cares about the policies there, they don't care. They just pretend to care until the election is done. And you might say, but so's the Republican Party. Largely true. Our national level politics needs to be upset. And that's why a potential outsider who's bringing disparate people along, like Donald Trump, who's bringing on people like RFK, at least has a chance to upset that apple cart in a way that inevitably could result in actual progressive or liberal politicians that represent the values of the traditional Democrat voter. Even people that have been reliably Democrat for years, such as union members, are starting to wake up to the fact that many of the policies at the national level that Democrats have pushed for years haven't benefited them. Average Americans are seeing that more and more we're being asked to sacrifice, we're being ignored with our voices, and instead the leaders of our country are unelected in most cases, people that we don't even know. Who's running the country right now? It's not Joe Biden. We don't know. And our interests aren't at the forefront of their mind. Their own interest, their donors, Interests around the world are more important to them. But even if you can't vote for Donald Trump, even if you despise the man, and there are reasons to dislike him, you have to reject this Democratic Party that felt that you were so untrustworthy that they could not give you a voice. You get to pick the puppet candidate that they've installed. You didn't get a real voice. And if Kamala Harris wins, you're not going to get a real voice in 2028. And you won't get one in 2032, and you won't get one in every election thereafter. The only chance you have of salvaging the Democratic Party is to repudiate this party that feels entitled to power and feels that they cannot trust the people that vote them into office with the truth and to have a voice. And so for those reasons, you should reject the Democratic Party. Vote third party if you have to. Vote Jill Stein. Write in someone that you really respect, but understand that the Democratic Party does not respect you. They don't care about the groups that they claim to care about, whether it be women, whether it be black people, whether it be Muslims, whether it be the LGBT, they don't care. If they cared, they would have gave you a voice, and they didn't. They lied to you, and they installed their puppet, and it turns out that puppet stands a great chance to lose. That's how little they think of you. And it will never change until you stand up and say, we will no longer accept this.